Hello Guardians, and welcome to the first video of multiple in which I talk about different sounds that we can find at different locations that are going to be going away when the new expansion in September drops. Now before we start, I did want to mention that some of these sounds you can probably find elsewhere on different locations. If you can, let me know. That would be great. It'd be always fun to know that kind of information. But with that out of the way, let's start. Io. With it being the third largest moon of Saturn, it sure does live up to it. With its big bones, big taken, and large plumes of potentially poisonous gas that we don't really have to worry about as we do have a helmet on. But that's just the backdrop to what we are going to be looking at today. Now we're looking around here for a dust devil. They usually spawn in this area. I think I see one. Let's listen to it. Now this might seem a bit mundane and boring to most people, and they just might shrug it off or not even look at it at all, but to me, I see it as adding a lot to the environment. If we look around, we can barely see trees of any kind, and in fact, the one that we see in the background looks dead. Now dust devils are usually found in a more desert-like environment, and it's usually when hot air is on the surface and then moves upwards really quickly through the cool air, and then the hot air is stretched, making the cone that we see. And it's a bit of an abbreviation, but that's generally how they're made. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I looked in other areas of Io and I can't really find these dust devils anywhere else except the main area. And there's like 3 reasons I can think. One, I'm just not too lucky and I couldn't find one. Next, like an actual sciencey reason or something of a sort. And the third would probably be because this is the first area of Io that we start on, and especially when you're playing through like the Gaul campaign, this is like going to be the first place you look, and they just wanted it to look nice. And for whatever reason, they just didn't put them elsewhere. I'm not too sure. Oh well, whatever it may be, we should just let them be, as they are just out for a spin. Now our second sound of interest is found in the Lost Sector in the same area, Affixed Conduit, but let us clear these enemies out first. Alrighty, with that done, let's turn around and see our floating little buddies. Now, as I said before, you might be able to find these little guys on other Vex destinations. That's neither here nor there. Let's take a listen. This sound can be pretty easily missed at the pace this game normally goes at, so if you do stop to take a look, or if you do just so happen to hear it, it is pretty nice because it does add, I think, quite a bit to the world, as it makes it a little bit more in-depth. Even if you have no clue what they're doing here, it's just nice to see little Vex contraptions floating around, doing whatever they're doing. But anyhow, let's just let them do whatever they're doing. They're probably just vexing around anyhow. The next sound that we're going to be listening to is going to be located in the Grove of Ulantan, which is located in the Lost Oasis area of the map. Before we listen to the sound, there's a bunch of enemies here, so let's clear them out really quick. Alright, so with that done, we keep our eyes forward and on to the next subject. Let's listen. If you've at least taken a quick glance of Io, you've probably seen a bunch of these guys that are littering the entire surface. But this specific one I felt like was a lot easier to hear. There's probably other ones like it, but this was the closest one to other things we're going to be listening to. So these geysers will periodically spout, most likely toxic fumes. We can't really tell since we don't take damage, so we could also just say they spew out steam, or whatever else you want to think of. And I'm not too sure why, but for whatever reason, I've kind of always liked these geysers. Maybe because they can just blow off steam whenever they want. Now, before we listen to the next sound, I did want to mention that this might look a little bit different from the other clips, but that's just because I kept trying to record the sound, but every single time I would try to record the sound, that little pyramid ship from the First Contact public event would be right next to it, and it would be constantly making its little ship sound. So, yeah. Anyway, with that out of the way, we can listen to this next sound, also in the Lost Oasis, really close to where we just heard the last sound. And it's actually right in the very middle of the area. It's the big giant tree that you can find there, and there's actually a bunch of other trees around it, but this one's just like the easiest to listen to. And if we angle ourselves properly, we can hear this very sound. Now, this specific sound I really like because it sells the idea that this planet is super dry and a lot of the things are dead, and that this specific tree could completely collapse at any minute. And if you do back up a bit, you can see that there's a large part of the trunk missing, and if you look off to the left, like back side of the tree, you can see that part of it's there and it's used as like a sparrow pathway. And it does make me wonder what this tree did look like in its prime when it was still growing, maybe fruits or whatever it was. But I think we should get out of here before this tree timbers. Alright, so our next subject of interest, or should I say interest, that you can find just about anywhere on the solar system now is going to be at excavation site 2, which you can find in Giant Scar. But before we listen to that, we should probably clear out these guys first. Okay, so with that done, these are most likely Eyes of Savathun, although I don't really think I'm too qualified to talk about this. And while there's a ton like that you can find all over Io, this is probably just the best one to listen to, at least I think so, since there's no other outside sounds. But let's just go ahead and listen. I think the most unnerving part about these guys is they follow you no matter what, whether you crouch, whether you jump, whether you're sprinting, and it feels like whenever you look around, there's always going to be one looking at you. So we should probably leave quick before they lash out. Now, if we head back outside and go a little bit down the road, we can find this cabal looking tunnel. And if we head inside and look off to the right, we can see these like pipes making these sounds. Now, I can assume that these pipes are carrying one of two things. One, it would be like resources that the Cabal are mining from the planet, or two, because we come here in the Gaul campaign, and Gaul's trying to like replicate his light, and if you look around Io, you can find like light crackling up from the ground. Maybe they're like siphoning it from there. I'm not really too sure. Let's move on. Now, if we head a bit further into this tunnel, we'll come out at the other end in the Terra base Karen, and in that, we find an area full of enemies. Clear them out quick. When we're done with that, if we look in the very middle of the area, we can find and hear this. Now, the first time we come to this area is going to be when we're playing the adventure Postmodern Prometheus. And when you try to help Asher Mir fabricate light through this crackling light, it's a bit of a TLDR, but at the very end it fails. Regardless, this crackling light is still here, left from the Traveler, as it was the last place the Traveler touched. And this very sound emphasizes with that fact, because it sounds like this could burst up at any moment and just explode with light. Now, with that being said, I think we should do what the Traveler did to the Fallen and piece the scene. Now, these are just a couple of the sounds that I found interesting, but there's probably dozens more that if you looked around, you'd probably find interesting too. So I just want to say, if you find any other interesting sounds and want to share them, let me know. I would like to know too. If you enjoyed this video, just let me know. With that, we're going to wrap up. Thanks for watching.